In an ideal world, I would always have a spare tracheostomy tube on hand, and it would never be a problem to get a replacement tracheostomy tube. However, things do not always work out as one would hope. About a month ago, I started having issues with my tracheostomy tube. The cuff on my tracheostomy tube started deflating. I would wake up in the morning and the cuff on my tracheostomy tube would have very little air in it. I could feel the air from my ventilator escaping from my lungs and up my nose and mouth. Soon, the tracheostomy tube started leaking air faster and faster. I would inflate the cuff on my tracheostomy tube before falling asleep. Then I would wake up in the middle of the night struggling to breathe because my tracheostomy tube had deflated. I kept my syringe close at hand and would quickly inflate the cuff during the night. Over time, I started waking up more and more frequently. In an ideal world, as soon as my tracheostomy cuff would start deflating, I would simply change out the tracheostomy tube with a new one. However, my insurance only covers a new tracheostomy tube once every 3 months. My tracheostomy tubes rarely last 3 months. My cuff almost always starts to fail 2 to 4 weeks before I'm eligible for a new tracheostomy tube through my medical equipment company. I have, in the past, been able to buy a new tracheostomy tube online. However, since the global virus has entered the scene, it is very hard to find respiratory equipment online. Additionally, many medical manufacturing plants have shut down periodically during this time, which has decreased the supply of respiratory equipment. Add to that the increase in the number of tracheostomy tubes being used by hospitals. This all means finding a tracheostomy tube has been very challenging. This difficulty has also affected my medical equipment company's ability to secure respiratory supplies. When I order my tracheostomy tube, I never know if the tracheostomy tube will be in stock or if I will have to wait 2 to 3 months for a replacement. I contacted my respiratory therapist 2 weeks ago about getting a new tracheostomy tube. Unfortunately, the tracheostomy tube is on back order. The company has no idea when the tracheostomy tube will be back in stock. In the meantime, I'm trying to make my current tracheostomy tube work. I keep a syringe close at hand so I can inflate my cuff whenever it deflates. I have spoken to my respiratory therapist, and she does not have any extra tracheostomy tubes, which will be of use to me. If my cuff completely fails and no longer holds any air, I have been told to go to the emergency department. Perhaps in larger cities in which hospitals and emergency departments are well stocked with medical equipment, this may be good advice. But I have found my local hospital and emergency department do not have very many respiratory supplies on hand. During a hospitalization 2 years ago, the doctor wanted to change out my tracheostomy tube. The hospital did not have any tracheostomy tubes which would work for my airways. A tracheostomy tube had to be ordered from a medical supply company. It took several days before the tracheostomy tube arrived at the hospital. In the meantime, I had to continue using the tracheostomy tube I had. With this in mind, I know if I go to the emergency department, the probability of the hospital having a tracheostomy tube on hand will be very slim. Either one will have to be ordered and I'll have to wait at the hospital several days for its arrival, or more likely, I'll be sent home and told to follow up with my pulmonologist. My pulmonologist does not have any extra tracheostomy tubes at his office. The only thing my pulmonologist can do is contact my respiratory therapist and ask for a tracheostomy tube to be ordered. Hopefully, my tracheostomy tube continues to hold air, and hopefully, my new tracheostomy tube will soon be on its way to my home. I look forward to getting a good night's sleep very soon again, and soon be able to breathe without having to constantly inflate my tracheostomy tube cuff. Thank you so much for joining me. Please remember to like and subscribe down below. I hope you have a great day and a wonderful week. Bye-bye.